Hey sewing friends, it's Michelle Umloff. I hope you all are doing well and are at home and safe and healthy. I'd like to do this video to help you set up your sewing machine so that you can make your own face masks. There's a lot of talk about that right now, and if you have a sewing machine, now is the time to go get it. And we're going to go through how to set it up. I'll talk about selecting the right thread, the right needle for the machine. I've received a few photographs from people of their machines, so I think between what I have here and kind of like you looking at your manual a little bit will help you be able to figure this thing out, right? So just want to make sure that you all can hear me. Give me a sign, give me a comment, or give me a thumbs up or something. I'm using some new toys here. I tried a Facebook Live from my computer a couple days ago and failed miserably. So I learned that I had to get some software, and I'm all hooked up now. So this is pretty sophisticated stuff. And I have several different cameras, so I'll have to bounce back and forth between them so that you could see what it is I'm working on. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a machine in front of me that is a manual sewing machine. And this might be very similar to the ones that you all have at home. And so we'll start with this one and see where we go from here. What you can't see too well, this machine is similar to probably one that you have, but yet different enough, is that in the back, my thread goes on a spool stand back there. Yours is going to be a little bit different, and that'll make sense when I switch over to a different machine. So if your machine kind of looks like this one, it's going to have a spool pin probably like right about here. And you're going to place your thread onto that spool pin. I need to find some thread. So your spool pin might be horizontal or it could be vertical. Either one, you'll have to roll with it. So what you'll do is you'll find the end of your thread and you're going to pull that off. A lot of times they either have a snap end or something like this one does have. It's like little teeth that hold the end of the spool. And it's a little blurry, isn't it? There we go. And as far as the type of thread that you want to use, luckily I've taught beginners enough to know some of the types of thread that they go out there to grab. Oftentimes they'll grab whatever they see and they'll look for a thread such as upholstery thread because they think it's thicker and it's stronger. Well, that's not what you really want for this situation. This thread is made by a company called Gutermann, and it is an all-purpose thread. And what that means is you could do a lot of different things with it. It's more for construction purposes, which is what we're going to do. And not for so much like your decorative quilting. And that's all we'll talk about thread. So anyway, this is going to go onto your machine wherever it belongs on the vertical spool pin, the horizontal spool pin, whatever. Like I said, we'll go over that a little bit later. I kind of venture to say that your machine probably will not have this little gizmo. And what it is it's like a little plate that has 3 eyelets in it. And I just know that this machine, it has to get, the thread has to wrap around all 3 eyelets. Like I said earlier, you're going to want to get your sewing machine manual out. And between me going through this with you and your machine, I'm pretty confident that you'll be able to figure it out. And also your manuals, if you don't have them, you can find them online. Most manufacturers have their manuals available online. Plus you can go to YouTube and look for some videos. So you have a lot of different options, and sometimes you can find videos that are specific to your machine, okay? So you probably have something that looks like this. So my machine went through these thread guides. Sorry, trying to get everything in the camera. So my thread, let me get rid of my face there. My thread went through all three of these thread guides right there. The next place that it has to go is through the tension. And this is an important feature of the machine because it regulates how much thread is going through, how tight that thread is on your machine. And don't overthink this step if you have an older machine and it looks something like this. So it really just lays in on the side like so, and then you just gently bring it around. And then here's a spring right here. That's a spring. And it has like a little opening where the thread goes into that spring or into that little hook. So that when the thread comes down, it'll, if I put tension on there, it'll open that hook up. It'll move that hook, okay? I'm pretty sure your machines aren't like this, but just in case they are, you'll see something like this. This machine, I have to go through this first before I come up to this section. And the thread just pops right into there. I hope you heard that. It's a little snap. It goes right in there. There's no need to like thread it, if you will. Now, this is key. This is your uptake lever, and I know most all of your machines are going to have this. I'll pretty much like bet money that your machine has this uptake lever. Sometimes your thread will be able to go up and behind it and just catch. The way this machine is designed, I actually have to stick the end of the thread through a little hole. Okay, and then it comes down here, goes back in there, and then it comes down to this next thread guide. So let's take a look at that. Whoops. I need to have counterbalance on my camera. Okay, so now we're down here to this thread guide. You're probably going to have something very similar to it. It might not necessarily be in this exact position, but it'll be close. And then there's one more thread guide, and I know your machines are going to have this. There's a guide right here. Right in there. It just looks like a little tiny hook, and I can see on the camera you can hardly see that very well. I'm trying to get this at the right position for you. Let me get something so I can point at it besides with my finger. But right here, this is what I'm looking at. There's like it's really small. It's probably hard to see from the position of the camera. Let me try one more time. Yeah, I think that's better. Let's focus. So it's right here. Okay, that's a thread guide. So my thread is going to go in there. And oftentimes I tell people this is like flossing your teeth. Your thread's just going to lay right in there and go back. So that'll keep your thread very close to your needle. Now, another thing that sets this machine apart from your machine is that your machine more than likely is going to thread from the front of the machine to the back. This machine's a lot different. It threads from the side. But if you're using something like what your grandmother, your great-grandmother had, the featherweight singers, they do thread from the side of the machine over, okay? And about needles, while we're down in this area, the type of needle you want to use, if you have the package of needles that came with your sewing machine, that's great, because you're going to want to look for something like a 80/12. That's the size of the needle, and it is usually a universal needle. That'll be totally fine for our face masks. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. With this system, it tells me, I'm not like in Facebook, I'm in a different program, and supposedly your comments are going to come over here. And you know what I'll do? I'm going to check Facebook on my phone to see if I'm getting any messages over there, any comments. Not seeing anything, so I'll just have to wing it and hope that you all are there. I do see some likes and some hearts and stuff like that, so that's good. I think I am broadcasting. So the next thing I'm going to do is move the camera over to a different sewing machine that's probably going to be a lot more similar to the one that you have at home, but it could be a little different. So let me not make you sick, and I'll switch my camera back over. I saw that thumbs up. Thank you. Alrighty. I'm getting a new sewing room and I'm like totally excited about it, but I had to stop the construction on it. And so I am totally cramped in my existing space. And then I just added all this extra equipment to be able to do these videos. And it is tight in here, let me tell you. So, it's like, where are a pair of scissors when I need them? I just want to clear that out. One thing, I'm unthreading this other machine. One thing you want to keep track of, me personally, I'm a stickler for my loose threads. So I keep them in a little jar like this. And because they can be very harmful to your pets. I don't want to make any emergency trips to the vet. I've already had to do that because I thought one of my cats a while ago swallowed a needle and it was not fun. But at least I had that peace of mind. All right. Let me switch the camera and we're going to take a look at this other machine. Let's see. You know, I have all kinds of capabilities. There we go. So this other machine is, I know you don't have one like this. I'm pretty safe to say that. This one is a top of a line baby lock, and it's fully automatic. But this is what I was talking about. If you have a horizontal spool pin, that's where mine is located. This one might be a little bit higher. This one's actually for my bobbin thread. Because this machine has a lot of different features to it, but yours might be located in an area such as that. So I'm going to take the thread from the last machine and bring it over here. And we always say to cut your thread off. So I just snipped my thread right there, left the machine threaded, and pull it out. One of the things that you'll hear people say is, don't pull your thread out this way. Pull it out through the needle, okay? So, sorry about all this moving. I could really use like maybe another camera, huh? So I'm going to position my thread on this spool pin. And the way Baby Lock recommends is that the thread comes from the bottom. Your machine might not require that, but that's just like a little added extra information for you. If you look at your manual, it'll definitely tell you. And then I'm looking for my spool cap. There it is. I know you'll have some things like this with your machine. You want to select one of these that is the closest size to your spool of thread. So I took a larger one off. I took this one off because it was just way bigger than my spool of thread. And I'm going to put this smaller one on right here. It just slides onto the spool pin and you can put it up there fairly close and you'll be good to go. All right, let's reposition here. I'll let you kind of see me from a different perspective while I get this set up. The cord is just barely long enough. So let's go back to that eye pivot. All right, now I have to orient it so that you're in the right direction. All right, cool beans. So now I have my spool of thread at the top, and you can see that really, really well on this camera. And you'll notice that my machine has a lot of different numbers. So that's indicating how to thread the machine. So we're going to follow this sequence where it says number 1 right there, not this one. This one is telling me how to wind my bobbin. And there's a couple different ways on this particular machine to wind a bobbin. So it first goes underneath this thread guide. That's the first step. So it goes underneath this thread guide right there, and it comes up like so. Now let's pick up a little from the top, and I'm just going to follow this path. It comes around and down. Okay. Now let's go towards the front of the machine, and I can see right there was a number 2. So it's telling me 2 is going to point to 3. So we have to find the number 3. And number 3 is all the way down here. You'll have to trust me. I think that, there we go, there it is. So 2 is leading to number 3. Number 3 comes down here, and see how it does a U-turn? It's going to go back up. So we're going to go right up here. Bear with me. We're going to come right up here. I really do need a cameraman. And these newer machines are really cool because all you have to do is put your finger over like to the right and kind of go around, and it automatically will catch into that uptake lever. Earlier you saw me with that uptake lever, and I had to thread the tail of the thread through it. There was a hole for me to do that one. I don't have to do it with this type of machine. So very, very nice. And we're going to continue down here. Now we see 6, or now I see 5 on here. This really does get easy. So 5 is pointing down. And what that means is, remember earlier, I had a thread guide down here by my needle. There's number 6. And I just flossed my teeth, if you will, and my thread is through there. Then you'll just take the thread, the end of the thread, the tail, and you're going to put it right through the eye of the needle, the hole of the needle. Well, I'm a little spoiled for that. I'm just going to put my thread up there. You might have a similar kind of gizmo attached to your machine, and I'm going to push a button. I love that feature. So if after this you need to, you want to sew some more and you're thinking about upgrading your machine, there are other machines that have some self-threading options to it. So while we're down in this area, I'm going to turn this camera a little bit so you can kind of see that I am here. While we're in this area, this is the bobbin case, okay? I had a question earlier from a lady about where is her bobbin case. So for this particular machine, I can just move this button a little bit and open up the bobbin area. This is called a drop-in bobbin. They're going to vary a little bit. I've had other machines where you pull this towards you to open this section. If you can't access your bobbin, like this lady, the needle plate was totally solid. So her bobbin was located in a different area. So what happens is most machines, and I'm just going to venture that you guys have like a semi-modern machine, have an accessory tray, and this opens up. Kind of like our sewers joke is this is a great place to store M&Ms or your favorite candy. So this not only opens, but it also slides off. And the reason it slides off, like on this machine, is because when you do some sewing, like maybe on sleeves or pant legs or something like that, this is called a free arm. That's a little above and beyond what you need to know right now. But the other lady, her bobbin was accessible down in this area. And in a moment, I'll take you back over to the other machine and we'll take a look at that. But most of you are going to have a drop-in bobbin. So they're really, really easy to use. So let's reposition the camera. Oh boy, that's nice. You can really see what's going on in here. Let's see if it'll focus. There we go. You can tell that there are some arrows here. Where's that? Where's my sophisticated pointer? There's some arrows here. So you see that arrow right there? And then it goes over to the side a little bit. And that's the path that your bobbin takes to thread. So let me show you how that works. You'll have to refer to your manual for this part because it could be different than mine. It could be the same, but it might be different. So I always look at this as this is the letter P, okay? It's the letter P. This tail is over here, and I'm going to drop that down into that bobbin section. I'm going to bring the bobbin thread over here, and it's going to come around, and see how I follow that? And what's really nice is once I get to this section right there, there is a like a blade, and it'll cut the thread tail just like that. And it's good to go. You don't have to do anything else with that bobbin. Now, Judy, your bobbin is totally different setup. And let me get this camera situated so I can move back over to that one. It's really fun working with beginners. You guys like really take me back. And I commend you for getting out your sewing machines and taking a look at them and trying to make your own masks. They're going to be phenomenal because it's really not that difficult. I got a really nice rating on Facebook about my instructions. Of course, it came from my aunt, so she's kind of partial, but that's okay. All right, now my bobbin case is on the side for this. Judy, yours is over here. Yours is in the front. So you would have opened up your machine the way that I showed on the newer machine. This machine opens up at the top, and this little door opens to expose the bobbin case. Mine is different from a lot of yours because there's like little black pieces on the side, and if you move those little black pieces over to the side, the whole unit's going to fall out. So if you get a thread jam, you would have to move those little black pieces over and do it carefully so that you can take a picture of it with your phone, how it goes back together. Now, I know they're intimidating, but I will be honest, I taught summer camp one year and the kids had machines with a bobbin like this, and they did great. The first day of the for the class, the first part of it, we talk about how to take this thing apart, and I think that's just so great. It's really helpful, and they were able to put those bobbin cases back all by themselves. So it has like a little lever, like so, and you can take that out. That little lever comes out, and that brings out your bobbin case. Okay? And here is my bobbin back in here. I like this little lever because it will hold the bobbin. That's nice. It won't fall out. If you don't have that lever like pushed out, your bobbin will come out by itself. So the bobbin will just pull out like so. And I have to look at this one. It's been a while since I've threaded this one. So for this bobbin, it's the letter D. Okay, it's the letter D. little diva, okay? And the D goes inside here, okay? See that? And the thread tail is going to go up at this top part. I know my fingernails are getting really long and it's not like I can get anywhere to do them. I'm probably going to have to figure out how to take them off myself. So I'm going to put the D inside of the bobbin case. It's been a little while. Give me a second. Let me think about this. Put the D inside the bobbin case and it comes up over into this slot. It stays towards the back and it comes into that slot, okay? And then it comes around up through that section. Let me do that again because it's been a while since I've worked with this machine. And again, you'll want to refer to your manual because they're going to throw you off. The manual is going to say, well, your thread has to come off clockwise or counterclockwise. And again, go to YouTube and look for your specific machine if you can. So I got my letter D. I mean, you could even look at it as a backwards P if you wanted. See, it's the letter D this way. It's a P this way, either way. And it goes in here. You want your thread, like so that you can grab it at the top, and it goes back along the edge of the bobbin all the way over to this slot. Okay, can you see that slot? And my thread's going to go down in there, down that slot. Then I'm going to rotate it over, and it'll go like right underneath that little plate. Okay. That's all it is. It takes a little practice, but you'll get it. Like I said, if those kids could do it, I know you guys can do it. So I'm going to hold on to the little lever. I'm going to pull it out. That way my bobbin won't come out. And I'm going to put it back inside there. Now, one of the things about this type of bobbin case is you want to make sure that you have that bobbin case in there completely. So what I do is I just get it on that little pin, and let me show you that pin again. There's a pin in there. Let me get my sophisticated pointer. There's a pin that this bobbin has to go on. Okay, it's right there. So I'll hold this little lever, slide the pin in there, and I'm working like around this camera. That's why I'm making all the faces, because my hand's at a really awkward position. And it worked the first time, of course. So let me put it in there. Okay. And what's also important, let me take it out one more time. See this little piece right here? This little blurry piece? This piece right here. That has to go into here. That's an opening for that piece. So you could put it in back like so. Okay. Now the thing that I was getting at earlier about being really important is you want to make sure that bobbin case is in there completely. So what I do is I just set it in there. I have it in position. I know it's right because it fits in there. Otherwise it wouldn't fit. And I'm going to push it. And did you hear that click? Now I know it's right where it needs to be. I do this with, I have another machine that has this kind of bobbin, and I want to hear that click. So let's do it again. And my husband just happened to start the weed eater at the same time. So you might not be able to hear it. I apologize for that. But there's the click. All right. With this machine, it has a guide. Unless you have a machine similar to this, it won't have that thread guide. Keeping track of my loose threads. So basically, that's it for threading your machine. Now, winding the bobbins are going to be a little different depending on which machine you have. So I can show you how I wind a bobbin on my other machine. Now I have to like find my computer mouse pad so that I can switch the cameras. Just not having enough room. All right, here I am. Are you guys finding this helpful? If you have any questions, let me know. I'll take a second and just check my phone to see if anything has popped up. Any comments? But I like it when you give me like a thumbs up or something, because in that way I know you can hear me. All right. Let me check my phone. So I got some reactions. That's good. Yay. Oh, now I see all these comments. So, okay. Thank you. Beautiful and smart. Thank you. So I got some reactions. That's good. Yay. Oh, now I see all these comments. So, my, all right. Helpful, great. I have to turn the volume down. Oh, good, good. No, you're welcome. Well, thank you guys. All right, so let's take a look at this, how to thread the bobbin, or wind the bobbin. So I told you my machine is a little bit different, being that it's very new, but yours might be somewhat similar, so this will still be helpful. So I have my thread. I have another brown thread, and for this one, you might have to use the same spool pin. For a lot of people, you will have to use the same spool pin. Oh my goodness. I have a tower of this thread and I just randomly grabbed it. I'm going to grab something else. I'm not going to fuss with it. So here's another spool of thread, and I'm going to place it on here. And again, I'm selecting the thread cap that is closest in size. And this is really nice because it has a really nice diagram. But this diagram does confuse people sometimes. So let's take a look at it. From up here, I know that this is our number 1 because my thread is right here. From 1, I'm going to go to 2, which is this gizmo right here. It's a thread guide. And from 2, you'll see that the arrow comes around to this side of this tension. And then it's going to go around and it's going to feed over to this area where the bobbin will be. Okay? That's all this diagram is telling us. I know that there's another set of arrows here. We're going to ignore those arrows. So I have a bobbin here. And so we're just going to follow the arrows. So it's coming off the spool. This will click. Hear it? It clicks, just like you're flossing your teeth. We're going to come in and around here. So we've wrapped around that tension disc, and I pull a nice long tail. There's 2 ways to really thread these bobbins or wind these bobbins. They have a little hole at the top. That's how I do mine. But you could place it right on the top here, and you could turn this. Wrap the thread around the bobbin area. I personally don't have as much luck with doing it this way. But you'll cut the thread. There's a blade in there that'll do it for you. That's why it's just not my preferred way of winding a bobbin. This machine, I can tell it to set it at the different settings to fill the bobbin. So as you can see, this would be just a partially wound bobbin, and this would be a fully wound. Ignore that. Then you're going to take this little lever here, and you can see the picture right here, and you're going to push that towards your machine. I have to do that on the other machine that I showed you, so look for that on your machine. And then you will probably hit your gas pedal, your foot pedal, to wind up your bobbin. For me, it's just a matter of pushing a button. And there we go. That's how you wind a bobbin. So that's really, really easy. And again, just refer to your manual because that will walk you through a lot of those steps. So I'm back. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? These things aren't as scary as they might seem. And honestly, the more you use them, the more familiar you will get. So after you make face masks for your family and your friends, there's a lot of organizations that are accepting donations for face masks. I've seen them for like veterans, nursing homes. I've seen them for like where people have to go in for their treatments, such as like maybe dialysis or something like that. The nurses and the patients need face masks. So if you need to be hooked up with a place that's accepting donations, don't hesitate to let me know. I've been making them for my local hospital, which is in Frederick County, Maryland. And that is the type of mask that I'm going to show you how to make today. So I asked you to get a sheet of paper, and I didn't bring my paper with me. So I had to kind of set up a few things at the last minute. This program told me, like, hey, we need your Facebook password, and then I had the wrong password saved, and then I had to check a different email account that I regularly use. So that's why I'm a little unprepared. But I've made a lot of these, so I have something that I can show you. Hold on for just a second. Type in any questions you might have, and I'll be happy to take a look at them again. I did clean up. That's why I can't find anything right now. All right, well, I'll improvise. I'm always good at doing that. I saw that there were some experienced sewers popping in, and I have to tell you one mistake that I made. I have my cutting mat sitting on this table that I'm working from, and I also was using my pressing pad too, and the heat from the pressing pad went through onto my cutting mat. And not only did I ruin one cutting mat, but I ruined two because I had them doubled up. So that was a little surprising. Let's go back down to the work table. All right, I told you to bring with you a couple sheets of paper, and we're going to make a pattern. Now, I didn't bring my paper with me, and I don't know where any is real quickly, so I'm going to use my piece of fabric here. You can use a piece of paper that is photocopier size, 8.5 by 11. If you really want, you could do an 8.5 by 14, but 8.5 by 11, or Yeah, 8.5 by 11 is just fine. I need a ruler. I've been moving some of my things downstairs and working from there too. So, all right. So we have our sheet of paper, and I want you all to learn about what we're doing so that you can do this. I have, let me switch the camera back. You probably feel like more comfortable kind of like seeing me, what I'm doing, instead of like not thinking that I'm not here. I have a bunch of shoe boxes underneath this table that has just different notions in it, and I am very organized. But yesterday I cleaned up a little bit, and now I can't find anything. All right, so we have our piece of paper here, and this will be our 8-inch side. Whoops. We have our piece of paper here, and this will be our 8-inch side, and this is the long side, okay? When you make your pattern, and you don't have to use this pattern, it's just a visual aid for you. But for you all, since you are mostly very beginning sewers or haven't sewn in a while, we're going to make this side of our pattern 9 inches, okay? That's 9 inches. And this side is going to be 14 inches. 14 inches, okay? What you're going to do to cut this out, I assume you're going to have some sort of fabric. I don't know what you're using, but you could use bed sheets. If you have an old bed sheet, you can certainly use that. And you need to mark that square. Now, us sewers, we have a lot of tools that make this a lot easier. And you can go out to your garage and probably find a T-square there and use that. Or if you have rulers, you can use rulers. If you have the tape measure, use that. Whatever you have, it's going to work. But you need to have it 9 inches by 14 inches, okay? And I select this 9-inch measurement to make it a little easier on you, and you'll see that later. So after you have it, you're going to fold it in half, all right? And where is the newer fabric that I brought up with me that I just cut this morning? Because I want to show you something that you'll need to know. Oh, there it is. Let me point this out, because I doubt that you all are going to be, you might be using plain fabric, and if you are, that's awesome. That makes it a lot easier. If you're using a printed fabric, for example, you're going to want to fold that so that the print is, we call that right sides together, so that the print is on the inside, okay? So we have that folded. And then you're going to sew along this one edge. That's all you're going to do, is you're just going to put a quick seam in there. So let me switch over to my machine, and I'm just going to do that real quick for you. You can watch me. And we'll talk about the seam allowance stuff and all that. All right, so I sewed that. Whoops. Whoop, 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 whoop. So I sewed that together. So I would have, on this printed fabric, I would have put that seam right across the top here. So I essentially have made a tube, okay? So we're going to turn that tube right sides out. So with your paper, I like to oftentimes work with paper to test things out sometimes. So if you had your paper, for example, I know you can't really turn that right sides out so easily, but do me a favor, get another piece of paper and you're going to practice this. This part I think can be tricky for you newer people. So now that this is folded in half, this edge is still 9 inches. And this is going to be somewhere in the vicinity, somewhere in the ballpark of 7. Just to make it easy, we'll just say 7 inches. Okay, we're going to ignore what's underneath my hand. Okay. And I actually like to put the seam towards me. Okay. So the seam will be towards me. This is 9 inches there. That's 7 inches there. And what we're going to do is pleat this. I was going to try to make a pattern for you guys that didn't call for any pleats, but I really think you need the pleats to make it a little bit more comfortable to wear. So I wish I could find that other thing that I had, but I think this will work just as well for you all. Let me get another marking tool. To make the pleats, we're going to draw some lines, and then I'll show you how I do it for real, okay? So the first line is going to be at 1.5 inches. Oh, I left that downstairs too. So one thing that I could do is take a ruler. Let me turn this mat over. So I have my ruler, and I'm using it to help me make little marks. So I'm going to make a mark at 1.5 inches here, and that's 1.5. Then my next mark is going to be at 2.5. Okay. The next one is at 3 inches. Then we're going to go to 4. Then we're going to do 4.5. And then the last one will be at 5.5. Okay? And we're going to do that on both sides. And you can use a school ruler. You could use your tape measure, whatever you have at home that you can measure with. So that was 1.5. We got 2.5. Here's a line for 3. 4. 4.5. And 5.5. Okay? They're the increments that you need. And we're going to make pleats with that. So with your paper, what you're going to do is you're going to take this line, 1.5 inches, and you're going to marry it up to the 2.5 inch line. Okay? And you're going to fold it. You're going to put a nice crease in there. I'm using fabric, and I'm just suggesting that you use paper. Okay, so I have that crease in there. Your crease is going to stay. Mine isn't, unless I get some pins. Let me grab some pins. So let me tell you about pins. One thing I recommend, if you want to use pins, is to use something that's glass head. And if you don't sew, you probably don't know what that means. But use paper clips, something metal, something that you can iron over, and it'll be easier because you can use a hot iron over that. And I hope you all have an iron. I was thinking about that. It was funny. I taught like an 8-year-old once, and it was in a rec council, and the mom said, "You mean she has to iron?" And I just got the biggest laugh out of that. So the glass head pins are helpful, but paper clips, whatever you might have at home. Then we're going to take the 3-inch line and we're going to take it up to the 4-inch section. And we're making a pleat. And you're going to crease it, I'm going to pin it. One of the last live videos that I did, I actually punctured myself with the pin, right? And I did it so good that I started bleeding on camera. I thought that was funny. All right, and then the last one will be, you guessed it, we're going to take the 4.5-inch mark up to the 5.5-inch mark. This just makes it more comfortable to wear. That way you won't flatten your nose and you can breathe easily. That's the part I really wanted you to see with the paper, is how these pleats work, because they might be a little bit confusing, especially if you haven't made them before. So that's easy, okay? So now I'm going to do it for real, so you see that how I do it. And if you have an ironing board, it's a great surface to work from. I have a pressing pad here. And I'm going to grab one of my newer pieces. Freshly cut. And I did not sew that, so let me put a quick seam in that real quick. All right. And I promise you, I'll talk to you about the sewing part. But just for one little seam, I'm not going to do that right now. Oh, I got some more viewers watching. Awesome. Thank you for joining me. All right, just to reiterate, where is it? Okay, that seam is in there. I have my tube. I'm turning this right side out. Just like a t-shirt, it's right side out. I always put the seam towards me. So the seam is down here. Just makes, it's not essential. Just makes it a little easier. And one of the common questions I've gotten is which end is which. So remember, this was originally 14 inches going in this direction, 14 inches in this direction. We sewed it the seam. This is going to be your 9 inches going across, okay? And so we have to put those little pleats in. I have a tool downstairs that I've been using, so I'm kind of spoiled with that. That's really nice. Okay, just want to make sure you can see. So let's see. You're going to do that same concept here. if you, so what would you use to mark with? I have, this is a wash away marker. So that means that when it comes into contact with water, the ink disappears. There's other kinds of markers that you might have, you probably won't have, that are air erasable, so they will dissipate after a while. And then, you know, if all else fails, just use your Sharpie, okay? So to in honor of you all, I'm going to use a Sharpie. And I haven't done it this way yet. So there's my 1.5 inch mark, 2.5 inches, 3, 4, 4.5, and 5.5. I don't know if you all can hear Chris, but he's out there just chopping away. He's clearing out an area. So 1.5, 2.5, 3, 4, 4.5, and 5.5. If you bake them off to the side like that, you won't see them by the time you do all this sewing. So I'm going to take the first set of lines. So you have 6 different marks on here, and they work in pairs. So the first 2 go together, the second 2 go together, and the last 2 go together. So the first lines, and I like to kind of like pinch it a little bit to put like a little crease in there, and take that first line up to the second line. And like I said, paper clips, you know, MacGyver it, whatever you have. And if you don't have something to hold it, you could just go ahead and start ironing it too. I would recommend using a steam iron for this, for your face masks. And if you don't have a steam iron, you could fill a spray bottle with water, or you could use a damp washcloth and lay it over top and use that to generate steam. So the third line is going up to the fourth line. And this does not have to be perfect, because let me tell you, when these come out of the washer, they get all kind of jumbled up. So don't worry that your lines are not straight. It's just I've made so many of them now that I can't make it wrong, you know what I mean? Well, I can make it wrong, but they're coming out neater and neater the more I make them. All right, and then the last 2 lines get married together. So ladies and gentlemen, after you do that, you have made your first 3 pleats ever. Give yourself a pat on the back. All right. So it's pretty good. Like it? So there, we have that. Let me look at the questions. No questions. Okay. Everybody's good. So the dotted line is for the bobbin thread, and the solid line is for the needle thread. Judy, you asked that about the bobbin. On my machine, you are correct. So Libby, you know, with those spools, if you twist the end, it releases the thread end. I'm not sure what you mean by that, because I'm looking at your comments so late. But all right, very good. So I have my iron here. These are really slick little irons. I have to give this company a shout out. They're called Aliso, and this is their travel size iron. And this is a really, really nice iron. It gets nice and hot. So there we go. Now there was no steam in that, but as you can see, I was putting my iron right over top of these pins. That's why I kind of discourage you from using plastic pins or pins that have a plastic head. If you have them, just don't go over them with your iron, okay? It's just kind of nice to have the use of these glass head pins. And I know a young lady I've been helping with making these masks was telling me last night that her pleats didn't come out as nice as mine. They're a little bit looser. And I really think the steam makes a huge difference. Okay? All right. So let's go sew a little bit. Let me take this camera off. Hey there, I'm back. Having fun? Now we're gonna do a little bit of sewing. So you know, I've had requests to make some of these masks. Somebody asked me to make a lot of masks, and when I told them that they could, if they helped me, it would make the process go a lot faster. I don't think she really believed me, but as you can see, up to now, I've only sewn one seam, right? I mean, look at everything I had to do. Which reminds me, your fabric should be washed first. So you want to do that because that way when you wash it, your finished mask, it won't shrink on you. And plus, you know, nowadays I think it's just a good idea just to wash whatever you have, whatever you're going to come into contact with. And one of my shops that I go to, they're open. They're considered an essential business now. So call these quilt shops if you want and find out if they're open, or they offer like pickup service and things like that. So you can, there's fabric that you can get. If you're in a pinch, I would say go to a place that begins with a W, ends with a T. They have fabric in there as well. The thing about their fabric, for the most part, is that it is inexpensive fabric. I know, which can be a plus, but because of its being inexpensive, it's kind of very thin. So you just like something that has a nice hand to it. It just feels nice and crisp. So enough of that. All right. I think I've run out of little giraffes, little animals. Let's take a look at the sewing machine again. Let me give you a picture in picture. There we go. All right. We're back here. You're going to have a foot on your machine. This is called a presser foot. You're going to have one that looks pretty similar to this one. I'll venture to say. That one is like your all-purpose foot, and that's all you really need. Let's take a better look at that. And again, you can refer to your manual. It will tell you what you have. Because your machine, you know, probably came with at least 6 different feet. But this one is an all-purpose foot. And you'll notice that it has a wider opening here. And what you can do is that'll allow you to sew zigzag stitches when you need them. So that's the nice thing about that foot. And they attach several different ways. Nowadays, for quite some time, these feet are press-on. So all I have to do is lower my presser foot button. I have a button for that. I do have a lever in the back. This is probably where yours is, to attach that foot to what we call the ankle. Okay? Now, let's kind of back up just a little bit. And all this sewing that I was doing earlier while we were over pleating. So I have my fabric, and this one's kind of easier to look at because I have the print, if you will, going in the long direction. Long, L-O-N-G, long direction. I've folded it in half so that it measures 9 by 7, okay? And I'm going to sew, not on the fold, not on the fold, but where the two, what we call raw edges, are lined up. Okay? And we're going to sew along that. So I'm going to lower my presser foot. Now, generally, if we were doing this like the if we had quilt police or sewing police here, we would use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm not even going to tell you what that means because we're just going to use our presser foot. I'm just trying to get that a little better for you. We're just going to use the edge of our presser foot along the edge of the fabric. Okay, presser foot right there is right along the edge of the fabric. My needle position, and you probably have different settings for your needle, but my needle position is in center. And what that means is it lines up with this little notch. Boy, you can't see that at all. There we go. My needle, which is right here, is lined up with the center of my presser foot, and there's a notch there that indicates that's the center. Some machines have the capability of moving the needle over, so this is left position. You could sew it that way, it's totally fine. I'm just going to have it set up in the center. I think that's better. It'll allow for the mass to be a little bigger. Okay, so let's back out of here. So that I have everything all lined up, I'm just going to sew. Now the important thing when sewing, maybe this would be one rule that you might want to consider remembering, is you always want to secure your stitches. So what that means is you're going to back stitch. So my machine does this automatically. You'll notice that it's going to go forward for 3 stitches. It's going to go back for 3, back forward, and continue sewing. And what that does is just reinforces everything so that it won't come apart. If you don't do that, it will come apart very easily. So it's going to go forward for 3, backwards for 3. And I'm really not one to sew very fast. I know I did earlier. Things like that will happen. That was just the thread getting caught. But it's okay. Now here is where I would want to back stitch again to reinforce those seams. For me, I just push a button. For you, you're going to look for a button that looks similar to this. It looks like a little U-turn. That is your reverse button. So when you push that, your machine is going to sew backwards, generally, for as long as you hold it. So for me, if I push that button, it is just going to do it all by itself. It's going to go back for 3, just reinforcing that end. I know, she cuts her thread and she raises the presser foot for me. I'm so spoiled. So we have that set up. So we got that. That's what I was sewing when I said, let me put this seam in there and then I'll get back to you. So that's what I was doing earlier. So let's get back to our little, our pleated piece. Now as beginners, you're going to feel more comfortable sewing this down in place. So we're going to lower the presser foot and we're just going to secure these these pleats in place. So again, I'm just going to sew right over top of them. Just kind of have to mind them a little bit because they might want to get a little caught up, not really caught up, but what's the word I want to use? Where they might get stuck. That's a bad word to say, but they in your presser foot, so they might want to move a little bit and shift. But you can see it just went right over that like butter. Now sometimes when you start sewing, if you try to start sewing on the very, very edge, so like say you don't put your fabric all the way back, you're going to be sewing on thin air. I don't know if you can see, but if I start sewing and I have no fabric in that section for my needle to go into, my machine probably will not advance my fabric forward. A little additional information that you might need to know. This thing down here, it's this one has actually like 3 of those in the back and then these 2 long ones on the side. They're called feed dogs and they're kind of rough and they serve a purpose, and their purpose is to pull the fabric to the back. So as this presser foot is down, those feed dogs are working in the background and they're grabbing a hold of that fabric and they're pushing it to the back of the machine. So that's their job. So you want to make sure that you have some fabric underneath of them. Now I'm going to lift this up just so that you can see. And I do like to start close to the edge, but I might be, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch in from the very, very, very edge of the fabric. So let me line this up again with the raw edge of our mask with the edge of my presser foot. See, it reinforces it for me automatically, so don't forget the back stitch over there. This side's going to be a little easier because we're going in the direction of the pleats. When you all are ready to sew this, I'm pretty sure you could actually watch this video and follow right along. All right, there we go. We have this. It's sewn for us. Yoo-hoo! You all should give yourself a big pat on the back this time. All right, let me take a break. Not really take a break, but we're going to go back over to the little pressing mat, and we're going to look at something else. I really like this new setup. Oh boy, my first live, I had to kind of do it with my iPhone, and oh my goodness, it was so hard. So let me find something else. Got these for you. All right, and switch cameras. All right, we're back here, yay. Now, I hear that there is a shortage of elastic. Not very surprising. In my stash, we call it, I had some 1/4 inch elastic. This is 1/4 inch knit elastic. So it would take about a 7-inch piece of this. I found that to be comfortable. And which reminds me, when you make your first mask, make a test. Don't do it for reals for the first time and expect like fantastic results. I'll be honest, I made my first one a test and I made a second one a test until I started getting more comfortable. And I had different instructions to follow and they were really, really complicated. So you'll need a 7-inch piece of elastic. So, oh good, I have something to measure with. What I'm doing is I'm measuring my elastic right here. 7 inches. And I would suggest making more than one mask per family member. You know, you might have to run out to the store and I would put that mask in the laundry. I wouldn't wear it again. Just my personal preference. I am a germaphobe. And then make sure, like, maybe you fold your mask. When you're out and about, and I would fold your mask in like this so that the outside is on the outside and the inside is on the inside, and you won't get it contaminated, if you will. All right, these ties, if you have to make them because you don't have elastic, aren't really fun. I'll just say it. It's not really fun. There's a couple ways that you can do it. Some people will make a tube, and you could do it that way. Personally, I do not like turning tubes, so I'm going to make it this way. They should be, this is 1.5 inches wide, and I hear 15 inches is a good length. I personally have not made that, so I will have to go with what that person told me. 15 inches, 1.5 by 15. So there's a couple ways you can do it. One way is to fold this in half and press. And again, if you have steam, use the steam. I didn't put water in this iron. But this gets hot. This iron is set on the cotton setting. And in case you're wondering what I have underneath of this, it's a wool mat. So wool mats are really nice because they, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It allows the heat from the iron to penetrate the top of the fabric as well as the bottom. So it's kind of like pressing it from both sides. Then what you're going to do, you folded that with the right sides out, okay? The wrong sides are together. And you're going to take this outside edges and put them to that fold, okay? You're going to do that. I know, you're taking out that nice crease that you put in. That's one way. This is one way of making them. I've yet to make one with ties, so I'm going to make one for you guys with ties, because I think that's how you're going to have to make it. And eventually I'm going to run out of elastic too, so I'm going to have to make it that way myself. Thank goodness, sometimes us sewers can be like hoarders ourselves. When we find sales at Joann's and we find something we like, we tend to buy it with our coupons. All right. So I got that. Press. Next step is you're going to fold this in half, okay? Because you want your tie to be kind of thin. You don't want it really thick. If you have an extra pair of shoelaces at home, I'd say they're fair game, okay? Now I've thought about this a little bit, and I was going to tell you guys that you have to fold in the ends of this. I have a smaller pressing mat underneath here because I don't want to ruin yet another cutting mat. So what I would recommend is taking one of these ends and putting a knot in it. Why am I telling you to do that? Because we didn't fold this fabric over, and this end is going to fray a little bit. So that putting a knot in it will keep it from coming apart any further than it will have to. Another way that you could do it is this tie is to go without pressing all the way down the center. It worked great for me. This is how I did it, is to fold it in thirds. So I took this end up about 1/3 of the way, that end about 1/3 of the way. I think I might like this way a little better, and that is because it's a little bit wider. But that might be just a matter of preference for you. And again, I'm going to fold it in half again. Okay. Actually, I think it's a little bit more narrow. So maybe that's why I like it's a little more narrow. But you can really make these kind of quickly, these masks. Last night I made about 16 of them. I cut them out, and I put the pleats in them. And that was as far as I got. I have to put the elastic one on today. And plus I think this is like another 4 that I'm working on now. So just to have, I think that's too thick of a tie, but that's up to you. Maybe you might say, forget that. I'm not folding that thing in half again. So one of the things you should do, though, is sew along this edge, and we'll go over to the sewing machine. So really, before you tie this, and you'll want to sew these 2 pieces together. So see how it opens up, and then we folded it in half. You want to sew those together so that they just don't come apart. All right, let's go back over to the machine. I'll check my phone real quick and see if we have any more questions coming in. Let's see. Oh, somebody asked me if I'm recording this. So yes, it'll be on my Facebook page, and there's no purchase required. I'm doing this because I love you guys. So yeah, I have a lot more people watching me. Somebody wants to learn how to do these videos. Well, you have to crash and burn a couple times. Trust me, I've done that. So, all right, let's go back over to the machine. I'm glad you all are getting something out of this. This over. Alrighty. So we're back. You remember our little friend here? Alrighty. So these ties should be about 15 inches long, and I didn't measure these out. So let me do that real quick with 1 or 2 of them. And you could use one really long one and cut it multiple times. I was just using like little scraps of fabric that I had left over to make these. And they don't have to match your fabric either. So if you have just plain black or white fabric and you want to make your straps out of them, that is okay. Like I said, there's no sewing police here. That's not allowed. That's only allowed if you're like making like a prize winning quilt or something like that. All right. So I have these little pieces of fabric, and I want to put a stitch down them. I could put a stitch right down the center, like a straight stitch, for example. Or you could do a zigzag stitch, whatever. Doesn't matter. Anything to keep them together. I have this camera in my way, so I can't like see my machine all that well. And look at that. She wants to stay in one spot, and my needle's not threaded. Okay, that happens. That'll happen to you too. And I've helped some people lately that have had problems with their machine. One person swore that she broke her machine. There was another person who just needed information about like the bobbin or whatnot. So kind of between the 2 of us, we were able to figure out her machine. But the first thing I'm going to tell you is like, you got to get your manual, okay? should have done this ahead of time. It's a lot of sewing. But sometimes I like to watch people sew. I'll do 2 of these. So I didn't start from the very, very edge of this. You can see that because that's where I'll tie it, okay? We don't have to fuss with it because it's so narrow. So what I did is I placed this underneath my presser foot, and you can see I got the fabric in the back, okay? I'll just start a little ways down. And you can just guide it through very easily. If you have a hard time sewing a straight line, just put your fingers here and use them as a guide. That way you keep your fingers in place, the fabric can't move and it won't shift around on you. And keep your fingers away from the needle. Some of you might have something that looks similar to one of these. This is a seam guide. This is kind of like your modern version of your seam guide, but you can use that to help you guide your fabric underneath your needle. These are really cool. These are repositionable. So again, my fabric is at the back of my presser foot. I'll lower that. I don't know, there's a lot of different types of seam guides out there, but this one is repositionable, so it has like an adhesive on the back, and I can stick it right down there. Look at that. Just watch this. And I could really just put the pedal to the metal and let her rip. One more to do, and then we've got all 4 ties completed. I represent a company called Clover, and Clover has a lot of really neat sewing notions. So this seam guide that I have here is a Clover notion. One thing, it just bothers me that I have this towards the fold. So for me, I got to get back over towards the two, where the 2 pieces of fabric meet together. And it doesn't have to be straight. It's just a tie. You could even do a zigzag stitch if you wanted. I have a special guest joining me. Rarely does she come up on my lap anymore because I can't sit still. All right, she likes these little ties. All right, let's get back this piece, and now we're ready to put our ties on, okay? Chai is so funny because I'll play YouTube videos for her. So she's in front of my computer and she can see my sewing machine and my hands and me on the screen, and it's funny, her little tail is just a wiggling. All right, with the ties, what you're going to do is, and you can guesstimate, this doesn't really matter. Maybe that's 1/4 inch. I don't know. I'm going to put that underneath. You can pin it, Let me get the pin for you because I'm generally not one to pin a lot of things. Not only that, Chai likes to steal them, so I keep them out of her way. So I'll stick a pin in there. I'd say anywhere outside of the pleats, place your pins. Now, one rule, okay, this is a rule, don't run over your pins. And I'll repeat that, do not run over your pins. You could damage your machine by doing so. All right, so I'd have my pin there. I'm going to take it out and start sewing. They might shift on you a little bit. The straps might shift on you a little bit. That's okay. And especially when you're going over these straps, you might want to reinforce them. So you might want to push the reverse key or button or whatever you have on your machine and go over that a couple times. If I did that right now with this machine, it thinks that I'm finished sewing, so I'm not going to do it that way. You could sew a zigzag. I'm coming up to this pin. It's coming out. And again, reinforce your stitching at the end. All right, one more side. We're going to do the exact same thing for the other side. I wish I could put Chai on the camera and she could see herself. Let me check for questions before I sew this next side down. That way if I have to point out anything, I will. What do you think, Chai? Oh, okay. Nope, no questions. But yes, you can certainly share my feed with your friends so that they can make their own masks, you know, and don't forget, I do have like a business page. It's called Sewing Machine Artistry. So like the more likes I can get on that and follows, it helps me out. So that's a cool thing. All right, so let's get her started. I'm going to take that pin out. Coming up to the next pin, I'm going to take that out. All right, coming down the home stretch. This looks great. Let's see. Let me switch the camera. This looks so nice. I have not made one with straps yet, so this looks really, really good. I like it. I gotta put my pins away because the klepto cat will find them. All right. Let me go back over to this pressing mat. I watched a video the other day with somebody making one of these on an industrial machine, and he made a whole thing in like a minute and a half. I'd venture I could probably do it too, but I'm not interested. I kind of enjoy the whole process of sewing as well. All right, so here's what it looks like up close. So we sewed on this side. Now to finish this, what you want to do is, it's not a bad idea to put a zigzag stitch down here. And the reason I recommend doing that is because this is fraying. See how this is already fraying? It's just going to come apart. So it's not a bad idea. And it's going to continue coming apart, you know, possibly until it comes up to this row of stitching. So let's go over to our machine and we will set up for a zigzag stitch. Alright. And these things, once, if they get a little linty on the bottom, you can wash them off with soap and water and reuse them. Those are really cool. Alright. You'll have to consult your machine, the manual, see how you can achieve a zigzag stitch. Each of them are going to be a little bit different. I know mine is totally different than what you have. So I'm going to, again, line up the edge of my presser foot like I did before, and I'm going to put a zigzag stitch in here. A lot of the machines come preset with a zigzag stitch, which means it's already determined what the width and the length is going to be. So let's see, this one has a length of 1.4 millimeters, and I'm going to take that up to maybe 1.8. We'll see what that looks like. And I'm just going to sew a zigzag stitch. It appears that this zigzag stitch is going to go to the right of my previous stitching, and that's perfect. I'm here at the end. Again, I always will reinforce the sewing at the beginning and the end. Chai is smacking at my computer screen. Too funny. She's looking at these little strings. That is so funny. I put YouTube videos on there, so she usually watches like birds and squirrels and I don't know what else. Alright, we got that. So let's go back over to my pressing area and take a look. Chicey. There she is. What are you doing, Chai? What's on the screen? Aha, you can see her. She's like, hey, what is that? All right. There we go. All right. I promise we're almost finished. I am talking and walking you through this a lot slower than what it will take for you to actually stitch this out. Now, the reason I made your dimensions a little bit different than the ones I in my other video for people who are sewing these who are more experienced sewers is because I wanted you to have a little bit more space. So our next step is we need to fold this over, okay? And I want you to be able to fold that over to as wide as you're comfortable with doing. So fold it over. You can even pin it. What did I do with the pins? There they are. Oh, while I have you, while I have your undivided attention, I'll show you something else that's really cool. You know, sewers have graduated from pins to clips. I love these things. They're called Wonder Clips. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it to the back. It doesn't matter which direction you fold it, front or back. And you might even notice that I had different colored thread in my bobbin. So some of you who've had home ec back in the day, you know, you've heard that you need to match your bobbin thread with your top thread. If you want, that's fine. I don't always do that. It just depends what I'm working on. But I will fold this to the back side. Okay, and that means my ties are going to want to fold over to that direction. And I'm going to clip it or pin it. These things are like the best thing ever. Now, okay, so the reason I wanted you guys to have a little bit more extra fabric is be generous when you do this fold, because you're going to be sewing, and this is going to be on the top. And you could sew it from the other direction if you wanted. It doesn't matter. But you need to make sure that your stitching catches this so that it holds it to the back. So I wanted you to be able to have plenty of space to fold that over as wide as you need it so that you could catch it when you sew. So let me just fold it over there. You can press it if you want, if that helps you. I am a big proponent of pressing. You could, now bear with me, but if you have like Elmer's school glue and you need a little help holding it in an area, you could use that school glue. Most of it is washable, so look to see that you have one that is washable, which means that you could wash it. But I mean, there's some that you're able to wash and it'll wash out. So think about like if the kids get the glue on their clothes, then it would come out when you run it through the machine. That's what I was trying to say. Spit it out, Michelle. See how that's frayed? And another thing is you're going to want to clip those little threads because they will drive you crazy if you're not there already. Right? All right, let's go back over to the machine and we'll finish this up. I'm getting really good at using the software and maneuvering back and forth between the cameras. I've done a lot of webinars in my day. I used to do webinars for Sulky. Now I can do them on my own. All right. So what we're going to do for this step is you could continue sewing with that zigzag stitch. I like zigzag stitches. I think they're very pretty. You can see it on this. That looks very nice. Or you could set it up for a straight stitch. But you know what? For you guys, I will do the zigzag stitch, because I think that would be easier for you to do. So again, I'm going to start, make sure there's fabric underneath my needle. Take that first clip out. You can't run over that. Your machine would just stop. Now, you hear it's a little clunky. This is thick. Don't be afraid if you hear that sound. And reinforce in the beginning and the end. And look at that. Isn't that adorable? Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Almost there. All right. Oh, I whipped that out there real quick, didn't I? So I think that looks fabulous. I'm so pleased with it, and I know you will be too. All right, we're going to go back over to this area. I just might have to get me another camera. But I appreciate you guys watching me and helping me learn how this system works. It's really easy though. So let's take a look at it. So there it is. I think that is super cute. That's adorable. It's nice and soft. It feels good and looks good. Very good quality fabric in here and good workmanship. Yours are going to be the same because you had a good teacher. Just saying. And don't forget to put a little knot at the end of those. And I'll have to do the reveal. I'll have to put it on for you because I want to know how this 15 inches of strapping works, or ties, whatever you want to call it. So since this was my first video doing over Facebook Live, let me know how the sound was and things like that, because I really have no idea. I know there's people there just because I see from here, I can see just the likes and the hearts, but I have to go on my phone to see the comments. So if you could let me know that, that would be wonderful. So let me do the big reveal. And again, trim off those little threads because they'll drive you crazy. So let's see what 15 inches of strapping feels like. Oh, I know, and you want to see me too, huh? There. I think it has to go over your ears. The straps have to go over your ears. Yeah, they're just barely long enough. I would say it's a decent length, but your bow has to be pretty tight. The bottom one, oh yeah, there's plenty of room, but the top one could actually be a little bit longer. I think it's okay overall. I'll turn around and let you see it. But you can see how tight that was over my, across my head right there. But compared to the elastic one, I think this one's actually more comfortable. The elastic was really pulling on my ears a little bit, but I like the convenience of it. Get me out of this crazy thing. But very good. So my friends, we are all done. So really, you know, like your first one's going to take you a little while. Don't be surprised if it took you just as long as it took me to make this video. But the more that you make, the quicker it'll become. Trust me, I've helped somebody else learn how to make these masks, and she's doing like 20 of them and donating them at a time. So she's doing really, really good. If you have any questions, just go ahead and send them to me. You know where to find me. And thank you so much for joining me. Well, good luck making your masks and stay healthy and well.